Welcome to the Hangout Podcast. I'm your host, David Sharetta. Come on in and hang out. In this episode, I was privileged to sit down remotely from Japan with Garr Reynolds. Garr is an internationally acclaimed communications consultant, teacher, and the author of best-selling books, including the amazing bestseller Presentation Zen. This is a book that I stumbled upon probably more than 10 years ago, and a book that I've gifted to many friends and colleagues, especially when the topic of how to create more compelling presentations comes up. Our conversation was wide-ranging. We talked about Garr's more than 4 decades living in Japan, the Zen aesthetic and how that has influenced his work and his views of the world, the role of running, walking, being out in nature, and much, much more. I hope you enjoy this conversation as much as I did. Welcome, Garr. Thank you so much for joining us. I guess it's morning at your end, on your end of this planet, and afternoon here. So thank you so much.
That's right. Thanks for having me.
I thought we'd get started in a place that is a natural starting place for most people, which is with an origin story, where you come from, where you grew up. What about your past might point to where you are now in time and what you do for work and what you do for life?
Right. Okay. Well, I'm calling in from Japan. So I've been here, over half my life, for sure. Maybe 2/3 of my life, basically since I graduated. So I went to Oregon State for my undergrad, same as Jensen Huang, the NVIDIA CEO. And shortly after that, I had some time in Peace Corps, but basically I've been in Japan, except for graduate school in Hawaii, and then back to Japan. So, but why did I come to Japan? Maybe it's because I grew up on the Oregon coast. Our house was right on the beach. In those days, you didn't have to be wealthy to have a huge house on the beach. I mean, everybody did. That was what you did back in those days. That's in the 60s and 70s. And I guess, my mother always said the next country over is Japan. So if you keep digging, you're going to end up in Japan. We dig in the beach. So I just always had this sort of, romantic feeling about going someplace far away. And then once I arrived in Japan and just started reading and studying about the culture, I just felt, I really fit here. I mean, I'm always a gaikokujin. I'm always a foreigner. I'm not Japanese, but it's just very, very different from the United States. So I fit really well here. But in terms of presentation, where did that start? When I was younger, maybe you know this because you know high school students as well. I think I was more confident as a 15, 16, 17-year-old, certainly an 18-year-old. And so I just loved presenting and public speaking. And I did it in college, and people said, "Oh, you're really good at this," even though I was really shy and introverted. I'm less confident now as a human being. It's funny. You get that hubris when you're younger. And then as you grow older, you go, well, there's so much I don't know. But when you're 18, you think, well, I kind of know everything. So anyway, I was just really interested in public speaking and communicating and performing since I was a musician and still am. So I just like that idea of connecting with an audience. And then I combined that with my interest in graphic design and visual communication, which seemed to really lend itself for, the visual aspect, not PowerPoint per se, but, the big screen, someone taught, like a Steve Jobs kind of keynote kind of thing. But this was long before PowerPoint was invented. So my first presentation, I was 17 in high school in a science class using 35 millimeter slides. But the screen and the projectors were really bright. So it's just like today, basically, really huge screen, 4x3 screen in those days. 35 millimeter slides, so I take the photos and then wait weeks for the slides to come back. So that I really liked that. It felt like being, it combined cinema a little bit, aspects of cinema and photography and kind of TV. I felt like a TV weatherman. So that's when I kind of got the bug when I was 17 in high school. And then went to college and studied philosophy. And then I didn't really we didn't do presentations in those days with visuals, of course, because computers just came out when I was in college. But we would present like at the chalkboard and things like that. And so anyway, I just always kind of did that. So that's kind of the origin story. But then how did the presentations then become this thing? As you know, you've heard of death by PowerPoint and you've probably seen a lot of boring.
I've suffered it many times.
Yeah. So I started, I worked for Apple, sorry, yeah, I was been in Asia forever, in Japan forever, but then I did leave to work for Apple. And and before that, I was a president of an Apple user group. And so I was, very much interested in presentation and then came back to Japan. But how did this presentation Zen stuff started? So when I was at Apple, of course, you can't do your own thing. You can't do your own presentations. You can't have a website and things like that. So I got a chance to become a college professor. So I left Silicon Valley to come back to Japan, to Kansai Gaida University. And then I started a website and Presentation Zen website as well, 20 years ago or so. And then I just put everything I know for free on the website. And then eventually, I didn't know this would happen, but Pearson's the big publisher, and they asked me would you like to write a book? So I did that. And then I've written 3 editions of that and a few other books and some books in Japanese too. So that's where we are. And then I just go all over the world doing keynote presentations and seminars and things like that.
Well, I have to say that what I discovered you and your work by accident. Now, probably more than 10 years ago. Hopefully,
Oh,
my
really?
date is correct. I remember being so frustrated by what I saw as this general addiction to PowerPoint that I was seeing all around me, and as it became more accessible, and then that's online, and you got Google Slides, and there's just all these different varieties of the same, different flavors of the same ice cream, so to speak. And so, but they all had the same issue, which was people would cram a bunch of content into as few slides as possible because they somehow thought that there was this kind of stigma against having a long presentation slide wise.
Mm.
So you'd get these just complete dumps of information. And I remember one night going online and thinking, there's got to be books on presenting, and that's how I found one of the editions of Presentations and I've since gifted it to I don't know how many colleagues, um, especially especially towards the start of their careers where they go, oh, you want me to present at the board meeting? Do you have any tips? And I go, hey, yeah, here's this book, and it's really heavy on images and it's light on text, and you can go through and really pick up the aesthetic. And that's really what originally kind of turned me on to your ideas, and I've just always been very grateful.
Right.
So,
Thank you. So how have you used it? So how is it, what's like the most interesting presentation you've done or you felt
you
this
know,
this really worked?
I the most interesting work that I've been able to do, and I think that others, uh, colleagues of mine and just friends, is when we try to do a presentation where there's, um, I always joke if you can do a presentation and do a slideshow with no words, I'm going to take you out to dinner. No words on the screen. That's a little extreme, right? But where really people think about the imagery, the high quality images, the planning it out in an analog format first. So that's kind of a idea that I picked up from you, just even the post-it note
Hmm.
approach. Um, so I've tried to do, we have a leadership retreat every year, and I put together where are we, what's our journey been in the past year? And then what do we think it's going to lead to in the future? So it'll be images from the previous year, um, and then leading into the future. So really trying to channel that idea that you have mentioned, even of the slide projection, because I remember my dad was an amateur photographer.
Hmm.
He used to show us these slideshows back, like I'm talking about 1978 and stuff.
Hmm.
And you had to really choose your slides carefully back in those days, right? Like
Hmm.
it was expensive to get them made. Um, we didn't have this overabundance of images, right? It was like you had to choose them carefully, think about the sequence.
Right.
And so really trying to run through that. I don't fashion myself to be some great presenter, but I really try to channel that from you. The other thing that I've coached people on is the empty space, whether black or white, between
Mhm.
slides. Um, to not be afraid to have a blank screen
Mhm.
so that the attention of the audience is on the idea and on the presentation and what's just been said, rather than all eyes just looking at the next content.
Yeah, that's a good point. You could do that in the old days. You just put I guess, no slide in the, I
Right.
don't know. Oh, it'd be white. Anyway, yeah, it'd be
What?
kind of white and too bright, I guess. But yeah, but with, software today, and you can always just hit the B key, on
Right.
your keyboard or your, whatever. It's always on a remote control. But if you kind of plan that, yeah, you have a black slide in there. Otherwise, even, everyone's looking at you all the time. So or looking at the screen all the time. So yeah, it's good to plan that in, right? It makes it more interesting that way. And also the thing is when people get off topic, and that's fine, right? You want the audience to be engaged, but let's say you have a slide up, I don't know, about, it's something that's just not related now to it. There was a question and now you're kind of going off in a tangent, but it's relevant. Well, yeah, just hit the B key, make that slide go blank because otherwise wait, are we talking about that data? No, we're not talking about that anymore.
Right.
So yeah, that's a little trick you can do.
How much influence has Japan, and I've never been, full disclosure, I've never been to Japan. It's definitely on my list, but kind of a Zen aesthetic, that may be somewhat of a stereotype, but also I'm sure has some truth to it. How much has that influenced your work, your book, etc.?
Well, yeah, a lot of people, a lot of foreign people who come over who are really interested in Japan. Of course, you get into the culture. And Daiset Suzuki, who wrote over 100 books in English on Zen, and he had said that that's really at the heart of Japanese culture. Even people don't talk about it. They don't go, "Hey, look at Zen, this, Zen, that." People don't, and most people are either sort of a mix of Buddhism and Shintoism. They're not really very religious. But all Zen is, I mean, the Zen aesthetic, Zen arts like
Right.
tea ceremony and different kinds of calligraphy, and then no theater, sumie, which is kind of a brush painting. So you have hundreds of different shades of black and gray on white. Yeah, so the idea is just simplicity. I mean, it's not really just a Japanese idea, but you just you need something to kind of a framework. It doesn't really matter what the framework is. People have their philosophies. So Zen is, well, I'm going to say thousands of years. I'm not sure exactly when it came from, when it originated in India, then came through China and Korea, but really hit Japan about 1,000 years ago. Buddhism was before that, but Zen Buddhism about 1,000 years ago. And the aesthetic just really fits with the idea of, simplicity. So you can apply that to many things, such as diet, and cooking, obviously in terms of art, architecture, yeah, everything. It's really, I think we need it more than ever. I know it can be cliche and people think, oh, it's not really about Zen, but you can't help but be inspired by it. So you study it, like Zazen, which is meditation. Um, I was interested in that. I didn't really do like judo or karate so much, but you can learn a lot from those arts, those martial arts as well. So, Steve, actually, a buddy of mine who's a curator of old Japanese pottery in Kyoto. And he showed me one day, he goes, "Oh, let me show you this." And he pulls out, I went to his office, came back, and he had a business card from Steve Jobs. Now, Steve Jobs didn't give away many business cards. I didn't even know he ever had business cards. But there it is. It was similar to the ones I had when I was there. But he actually had a business card and he had them. So my friend would be sort of this private, tour guide. So Steve would come sometimes with one of his children or just by himself. And he was really interested in Japanese culture, the arts. And so my friend would take him around to different museums. And it's just like the things you hear about Steve. He's just tons of questions, really interested. And of course, he would apply those kinds of things to products and so on. So that's the whole point. I mean, you as an educator, know all this. You never know where inspiration is going to come from. So as an educator myself, I just try to make a fertile ground and hopefully things will stick, stimulate students to really want to pursue something on their own, of course.
I remember, I think it's probably been, you know, told a million times, but the story about Steve Jobs saying that the most important course he ever took in college was a calligraphy class. But I also remember when they were designing his private jet that he obsessed over one button,
Mm.
certain area of the cabin, whether it was going to be a toggle or some sort of other switch, because he was that focused
Yeah.
on detail, right? Simplicity, functionality, relevance, and then just eliminate what's not necessary.
Yeah, he was a big fan of Japan, Japanese culture, and Morita at Sony, and yeah, he would often take trips to Japan, and he was very popular. He's popular everywhere, but the legend's kind of bigger than the actual person now.
Sure.
But yeah, he was obsessed with that. I was listening to a podcast by one of the guys that worked for him not that long before he passed away, but he was showing him this advertising kind of thing, like how advertising can work on the iPhone. And his examples that he showed were like Sears. And when I was listening, so I showed Sears and I showed, I don't know, like some maybe Outback Steakhouse or something like that. And I'm thinking, oh God, no. And of course, at the end of the story is Steve is just irate. Like, how dare you show me this crap? First, you don't choose those companies. If you're going to show examples, it's the Ritz-Carlton, the Four Seasons, whatever, the top Nike. You don't do Sears or Outback Steakhouse. But this guy came from another company. His company was bought out. But it's really funny. So once you work there and you get to know Steve's thinking, we'd say, does Steve know about this? Because I would see something stupid in a meeting. I go, no, he doesn't know. I go, yeah, that's good. Because you know what, he wouldn't approve this. These were lower level things that never got pushed up. But
That's it. Yeah, that's interesting. So you were there at a pretty critical. How long were you at Apple for?
no, I was only there 2 years.
Okay.
He just after he, a couple of years after he came back. I mean,
Okay.
when he came back, I was involved with Apple stuff, but from the outside. But I attended all the events there, and I was president of a user group in Japan. But when he came back, Apple was basically a couple of quarters from bankruptcy. I mean, that's how bad it was. It's hard to believe. And then a few years ago, they were actually the most valuable company in the world. I mean, bigger than Shell and Exxon Mobil, whatever. I mean, it's crazy that they went. That's quite a success story.
Yeah, I remember. I think the one of the first laptops I bought in the I'm going to say early '90s was a some version of a Mac, and it was terrible.
Yeah,
And that must have
yeah,
been. I felt like I'd bought like a Ford Pinto or something. I was like, this is just. And I don't. It was probably when he wasn't there, or right when he had just come back. I don't remember the dates, but it's really been quite a remarkable
yeah.
journey last 30
There's
years.
Yeah, there's really good lessons there for educators too, or certainly principals or superintendents who have to, they're your leaders, right? You see the
Yeah.
big picture. So what happened is that there was this product creep. So Apple was all about simplicity, and they lost that. They made too many products, just too many products, or some were very similar, and that's not what you want to do. So he came back and just did a thing on a whiteboard, and it was basically 4 product lines that we have. I mean, just really simplifying means you have to throw away stuff that some people still like. It could be some curriculum or something like that, but you see the big picture. But you're always going to have people say, no, 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 don't cut that.
It's interesting that I'm so glad our first conversation got postponed because we're now right in the middle of budget
Mm,
reductions mid-year due to some things we didn't predict. And part of that is a leaning, right? Becoming lean strong. You don't want to
mm,
become you don't want to reduce so much that you become weak, but it's really true. We have initiatives. We've got technology tools that we've barely used. We've got platforms that are redundant. We've got all these things, and you eventually, when there's an imperative because you want to make sure that you stay in the black, budget wise, you go, okay, let's lay all these things out and let's
mm,
go through a process of what can we get rid of, what can we
mhm.
eliminate, but still remain relevant and strong and effective. And I actually think it's a really healthy process.
Yeah. Yeah. The thing is, someone's going to not be happy about it. So it's a lot
Oh, a lot of
easier.
people aren't happy. Yep.
We had with Apple, there was something kind of like it wasn't like an iPhone, but it was called the Newton, which anyway, it was kind of a PDA, was it personal digital assistant kind of thing. This is 25, I don't know how many years, 30. That's a long
That's
time
like
ago.
that's like the era of the Palm Pilot kind of
Yeah,
thing,
those
right?
kinds of things,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
And
yeah.
and it didn't really work perfectly, but it was cool. I mean, it was again ahead of its time, and it had a lot of fans. We got otaku. Otaku just means like nerds, but in a good way. Like they love
Right.
this stuff. And when they canceled that because like, well, we're gonna focus on like notebooks, laptop computers. Forget what the other thing was. That's when iMac came out, the
Yep.
colorful ones and all that. Anyway, so they're like protesting one time in Cupertino. They're like, bring back the Newton. So you just have to really be focused. And there's a book you've heard of, Maria. What's her name? Kondo? Is it Kondo Maria? The Simplicity. She's all about
Yeah.
like getting rid of stuff, decluttering your life and your stuff. Um, but it actually can, minimalism can actually make your life more powerful. So, if you have to cut something here, it actually can make other things stronger, you know. So you have to kind of think of it that way.
I think we certainly in the US, we have many of us just have kind of this feeling like our space is unlimited, right? Like our houses are big and you fill up your garage and then you get a storage container and then
Yeah.
you put one of those damn sheds in your backyard and you fill that up with stuff and you're like, I don't even remember how
Yeah.
many circular saws I have, right? I'm just going to go to Home Depot and buy another one instead
Hmm.
of slowing down and simplifying. It's an interesting thing to think about.
Yeah. I mean, if growth is always the metric, is always what you measure, more growth. Well, it can't, how can that go on forever? There's got to be other ways. In other countries, I don't get off topic of what we're talking about, but other countries measure things like different things, not just GDP, but happiness and well-being, all these kinds of things. Because that's never, it's very Zen in a way, or Buddhist, that it's never enough. You're attached. If it's always more, I'll be happy if I can only get this, right? And then you get that. Go on, I'm not happy now.
Right.
Yeah, your emphasis is in the wrong place.
I wanted to ask you, what you think have been the positive and negative impacts of technology on storytelling, right? Like obviously we're able to have this very
Mm.
natural conversation across time zones and
Yeah.
thousands of miles. You can fly around the world and do keynotes and they can
Hmm.
book you on email via email and all those pieces. But do we lose something of the both the kind of primal impact of storytelling? Obviously, for the vast majority of storytelling's life, we were around fires and or
Yeah.
sitting in a cave or whatever. Did we lose it because we can? It's too easy to bang out a PowerPoint and
Well, yeah.
screen there.
Yeah. Well, you have to imagine, well, how could I tell this story if the lights went out? If the electricity goes out, right? I have to have a backup plan. And that, the essence of this is not just about, the technology at all.
Right.
So things like this, I mean, this is a supplement. And I do a lot of online, not a lot anymore, but during COVID, of course, that's what I did. And it was okay. But yeah, it's not nearly the same as being face to face, being live. But technology, not supplement, augments that. My English, augments that. I mean, I love concerts now. It's always the way I dreamed they would be. I saw Queen, not with Freddie, but with, with Adam, 55, 60,000 people, and we were kind of far away, high up in these seats, but they have massive screens. These LED screens are absolutely enormous. So we get the kind of the best of both worlds, this great visualization, and then we get closer to the actual performers there, even though it's a huge stadium. So it's mostly good stuff. The thing I'm worried about, not worried about, but right now we're in a weird place with AI, which isn't even new because you didn't call it AI, but we've been using it for a long, long time. I had a Magisto is a app, a video app that automatically you just give it all your vacation photos and videos, and it makes a great video. You don't have much
Mhm.
control over it, but it's like all this technology or all these special effects. Okay, but I stopped using it because I want to control. I want to be more. I like the process. So the thing is, right now there's all these apps that are saying, presentations in seconds. We'll make your PowerPoint in seconds. No need for research. I mean, these are actually things they say. I've got all this. I wrote this down. We're at the grifter stage, people trying to make money. But some things I don't think there are shortcuts to. And like movie making, of course, there are things that really, really help. But at the end of the day, I don't know. Um, the idea that AI is going to automatically write a script for you, it can help you with some things because it can bounce ideas off of you. But I think that's been it's overblown. I think AI mainly will be used not for those creative things where it is now, but things like, being able to detect cancer, for example, in this MRI that a human would miss. All these kinds of things. This is great, great use of AI, or safer airline flights or whatever. But right now, it's all talking about, you know, how this app will automatically obviously write your paper. I mean, that it can do, but what's the point of the paper for anybody?
It's interesting that you mentioned the paper thing. I was writing an article a couple weeks ago, and I thought I'm gonna run the kind of bullet point concepts through AI and have it give me sources of
Hmm. Sources,
each of
yeah.
the key points, right? So I ran it through, and boom, immediately popped up, and it seemed
Hmm.
super official, and it gave me a reference list and everything, and then and this is like the paid version of ChatGPT. So I thought, oh,
Hmm.
whatever, it's costing $20 a month. And I would say 80% of the sources were either dead links or were links to a similar website where you might find that information. And some of them gave me direct quotes that even when
Hmm.
I pasted them in and did a Google search, didn't exist. They
Yeah.
were completely made
Yeah.
up, and which is an
Oh.
interesting I mean, this thing is language learning models are ostensibly learning from everything that's out there and
Mhm.
this corpus of information that continues to grow. But I left that experience feeling like I'm just going to scrap this right from scratch, and
Hmm.
then I'm going to make little notes, and I'm going to go back in and do a Google search for these concepts, and it was actually much more accurate.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny you mentioned quotations, and that, using quotes is really useful in a presentation, but usually the source should come from something you actually read, and it could be just an article or it's something in a book. So I found a website that promotes itself as, all quotes. So I just searched myself, so I'm like my book, and it gave me 30 quotes, and every single one of them I never said. I never said those things. And it says, and it's already a slide that you can use, and it will say blah, blah, blah. I mean, well, one of them for simplicity is the ultimate sophistication, which is in my book, and it's attributed to, Da Vinci, Leonardo da Vinci said that. I mean,
Right.
and so I put that's a quote, but it says my name underneath it. That was the close one. The other ones are completely made up, and it's just pablum. I mean, it's like, it says the do your best always in every endeavor to persevere through presentation. Garr Reynolds. I never said such a weird, stupid thing. Where are they getting this from? I mean,
Well, and then the next layer of that is the deep fake videos where
yeah,
they'll actually, if you're a known personality, they'll actually, there are all these videos now of Elon Musk telling people to send him 1 Bitcoin and he'll return 2 Bitcoins to them. And here's this code.
yeah,
And you watch it and you go, I don't know Elon Musk other than what I've seen in videos, but I look at it and I
hmm,
go, it's like a
yeah,
98% real looking
right,
thing. And once in a
right.
while, there's a gesture, and you go, that doesn't seem totally human. But in another 5 years, we might not be able to tell the difference.
Sure, you won't be able to tell the difference between people you actually know, someone famous
Right.
like that. But then I came across one the other day that I thought was real. It was not a famous person, so I don't know the person. It's just a talking head, a person. But it felt very uncanny valley. You're familiar with that term, uncanny valley, which came from Japan. It just means when something's very, very fake, like a cartoon or a robot, then we're okay with that because we understand what it is. But when it's like it's 99% there, or even 99.9%, and then you think something's uncomfortable, something's a bit weird. There are actually people like that. People, for example, who may lack empathy and but seem very nice, but eventually, wait, something's off here with what this person said. It's kind of like that. It's a weird feeling. Anyway, so I'm watching this and she's talking, but the lips are matching perfectly. But there's
Mm.
something, it's like a dead, it's a weird feeling. I go, okay, so this is the problem. The whole website came up, or YouTube channel came up about a month ago, a video every day. You can do this with AI. That's all it's doing. AI writes the script, does a narration, the visuals now using some, it's amazing what it does, but it's all fake. It's just some guy wherever creating this stuff, and it's all regurgitated from Wikipedia and a million. I mean, it doesn't contribute anything. The idea of education and creativity is we're creating something that didn't exist. We're adding something. Well, it's not even adding anything.
Yeah,
But
it's a interesting place we're at right now, especially in regards to our our children, right? Like, what are they gonna grow up um, believing and knowing to be true, and be able to
mhm,
filter that out? I mean, my when I was in college was when, let's see, the end of college, I think my senior year in college, well, I got an email address, and it was
oh,
like only you could only email people at other universities. And
yeah, yeah,
I was
yeah.
like, this technology sucks. Like
Mm,
it doesn't even scroll. You got to hit return to go down to the next line. I
mhm.
go, this is why I'm not a multimillionaire. I'm like, this technology will never take off, but whatever.
Yeah.
And so that was how, that was, I was 20. And so now I'm in my 50s. And obviously I've kind of got that balance between the two realities. But for someone who's being born now, by the time they're 15, like, what does that look like?
Yeah. Well, I heard someone else talk about this is that I mean, people like Einstein, not to, name drop, but people like Einstein or Richard Feynman or anyway, all the brilliant scientists who were, probably on the spectrum. I mean, they're brilliant guys, right? But they also grew up reading ethics, reading philosophers, and they had morals were something they thought about, right? And try to do good by, your fellow man and all this. And that might seem to be missing now. If it's only just about, tech and how much can you do, and that's a really important part. Humanity is a huge part of it, and we shouldn't lose that. And that's what I worry about school or things that are cut. And if it's just always focused on tech, I mean, if I do have kids, they're now 14 and 12, and I wish, like, they don't ban with my son's school. It's a private school, international school, but they don't ban phones, and I wish they did because they're distracting. And I would love if I could afford it, if a school existed that had no tech at all. That's what I want. I want my kids to develop resilience and to be able to read and write and resilient and creative and problem solvers. That, to me, that's going to get you far in the world.
It's interesting that you bring that up. Schools, there's this recent push, certainly in California, but also across the US. And I know in Europe as well, of controlling, banning, limiting cell phones on school
Hmm.
campuses. I don't know if you've read The Anxious Generation, Jonathan Haidt,
Hmm.
how you pronounce his name. Uh, Really compelling book, and makes this whole argument about how after 2010, 11, when the iPhone became ubiquitous, it's really this been the sea change in the emotional lives of young people.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um,
But I complain about it all the time to my kids. But it's to them, it's exactly like, in 1966, the father complaining about that rock and roll, the long hair, the rock and roll. You kids, and of course they were wrong. Rock and roll is awesome. But on this, I'm not wrong. No one knows the future, but we have wisdom. The elders do have some wisdom sometimes. And what we need are more young people, and they do exist out there. Young people saying this is ridiculous. This is addiction, or it's not even reading. As you know, you read the article, I'm sure. I think it was Harvard, but kids won't read. These are Harvard
right.
kids who cannot read a book. I totally believe that because I'm the same way. I used to read books, nonfiction. I mean, look at the shelves; they're full of books, and I buy books, but I don't read them. I read them. I read all the time. So kids are reading constantly. They're one sentence at a time, one sentence here, maybe a paragraph. But the idea to sit down and think about things and annotate and it's so hard. It's got to be so hard for them.
It's I can't remember the author's name, but I think it's called The Shallows or something by I think the guy was a technology writer for the New York Times. I remember reading this book, and I read it, and it was hard for me to get through the book. And he's talking about how hard it is for him to get through books that
Yeah.
you remember in college or in high school. You're like, I'm going to read whatever.
Hmm.
They assigned this. It was like Dostoevsky or whatever, and like I'm thinking about it now, and I go, I can't. I
Yeah.
know it's, at least I feel, I don't have any science to back this up, but I feel like it's changed the way I view uh, absorbing information. Now I'm doing more and more audiobooks because I feel
Hmm.
like it fits into my workouts or my runs or whatever. And then I go, I'm like you, I have bookshelves full of books, and I get a chapter in and I jump to something else.
Yeah. So we need a movement. There is a slow, I call it slow reading, but then people think I'm talking about idiots or something. But that's slow, but I need to promote. Actually, it was an article, I think it's a school in Sweden that got rid of books mostly to switch to, iPads and things, all digital ebooks. And it cost a ton of money to do that. And now they've reversed it and they're going back to books. So, yeah, I'm the same way. We need a movement to promote books. Even, people like, and kids tell me if they have to read, they do prefer paper books if they're going to read a book.
Right.
And there's many advantages to paper books. It just feels better. We're less anxious. You get away from tech,
Yeah.
you know.
Get away
Uh,
from alerts and notifications
sure.
and
Yeah, and you can kind of flip back and forth. I mean, some things are great, of course, with ebooks because you can just search, find me everything about this word. I mean, it's great. But on the other hand, it's just something about holding the difference of, holding I don't know, a baby and imagining holding a baby. It's
true. Yeah.
or a dog or what a cat. It's something is real
Interesting.
here. Yeah, I love books. I love old books. I used to present for I'd go to the Oxford to the Said Business School. Anyway, I went into the library a few times, and like they have books that are hundreds and hundreds of years old that you have to like wear gloves and everything. But gosh, it's
Uh,
amazing.
wh- wh- who do you think? I mean, you've talked about Steve Jobs. I know I've seen you in video. We spoke a little bit about him here too. But who do you think are some of the most effective presenters you've either worked with or coached or seen?
Mhm.
Perhaps we can find them on YouTube, perhaps not. But could you give us some examples of that and what makes them so effective?
Well, yeah. So for me, I'm not interested in like, people who are really polished. I mean, people on the network news, cable news. I mean, these are people who have been doing it a long time, and that's not the rest of it. We're just regular people, but how can we be much better? So I love to point to people, and I just did. I just made a YouTube. It's on my YouTube channel. I just put it up yesterday from a former student. I mean, he's a former seminar student of mine in Paris. He's a Swedish medical doctor, and he's leading a movement in nutrition to help people, maintain a healthy lifestyle. Anyway, it's a keynote style of presentation he did last year, and he did one just a few days ago, but in his home, in his office studios. And he makes a really good use of visuals and structuring it, problem solve, a problem solution structure. And yeah, I mean, he's not going to be on the TV news. He's not a dynamic. I mean, he's a very soft spoken. He's a regular guy. He's a very smart guy. And that's to me that's most of us, right? We're just regular people. But he's very engaging and he just does a really good job. He understands the importance of visuals and the little things, kind of like how Steve Jobs was. Little details are really important. So he spent extra money to get the really amazing screens because that matters. So there's that one. I mean, I can give you the link later. It's on my
That
YouTube
would be
channel.
great. Yeah, we'll put it in the show notes. That would be great.
And then in terms of famous and like, the big keynote, and not just keynote, but also in interviews, Jensen Huang, who I mentioned before, is the CEO, founder of NVIDIA. And he's not a household name like a Bill Gates, but he should be. He's the 20th richest person in the world. I mean, he's worth today, I think he lost 8 billion a few weeks ago because he said something. But, on paper, I don't know what it is. It's near 100. I think it's
Yeah,
100 billion, which
yeah.
is insane, right? Anyway, but I love, he's just a regular guy. He's from Oregon. I mean, his parents are from Taiwan. I think he moved to the States when he was 3, went to Oregon State and then Stanford, started his own company. And he does these keynotes, which are, yeah, very visual, really, really great. But he's just a regular guy, right? So it's not perfect. I like that. I don't like the new Apple recorded keynotes,
Right.
so-called keynotes. They're not keynotes. They're like keynotes. They're videos, and they're kind of they're too polished, too slick, even though they're by the regular people, including Tim Cook. But anyway, Jensen, I love his keynotes because there are little tiny mistakes in there, but I love that. And in his interviews, for example, there's this one interview where I thought the guy interviewing him was disrespectful. A younger guy with Bloomberg talked over him and all. This is the kind of thing where a lot of CEOs would have walked out or got really angry. He's just a really nice guy. You wouldn't
Mm.
think. And I don't know what he's like. I have never heard anything bad about him. But I do know some CEOs with like Fortune 1000 companies that are nice people. And they say, you can be of course, you have to be firm and you have to be a leader, but you don't have to be, I don't want to say the word. You don't have to be, a, you
Yeah,
know, a D
yeah, yeah,
head. You
yeah,
don't
yeah.
have to be. And of course, Steve Jobs he was not a pleasant person often. And you probably don't want to cross paths with him. But on stage, he was great and very, very, very approachable. So there's a good lesson there. And with Jensen, he's just, yeah, it just seems like a really nice guy. But that comes across in his interviews and in on stage as well. So that's another one I would look for in terms of famous people. I used to really recommend a lot of TED Talks years ago. My first edition of the book, I had a lot of cooperation from TED with that. And I've been to TED when it was in Long Beach. But I don't watch them anymore because they're just a little bit too slick. And I know they have their presenters memorized. They literally memorize what they're going to say rather than just having more, a good idea. Of course, you're strict, but I like the imperfections. I like the realness. I don't like memorized, unless you're an actor. I mean, if you're an actor, then
Right.
of course that's different. I mean, if you're Tom Hanks, then fine. We're not going to know you memorize. It doesn't seem memorized, but
Right.
most of us aren't like that. So if it's memorized, it's going to feel a little bit off. So I'm sorry I don't have a
It,
list
it-
of names, but
no, that's a
maybe one.
those are great. And I was going to ask you the follow up about TED Talks, so I'm glad that you brought that up because I started to kind of feel that sort of a shift in my perception of TED eventually, right? It just like there's TED and then there's TEDx and then there's local, whatever, and they all kind of have structure. And I had the privilege of interviewing or having a conversation with a guy who he did an early TED talk like 10 years
Mm.
ago or more on this experiment that he did in India with a hole in the wall school where he
Oh yeah, yeah.
yeah.
I know that
And
one.
I remember seeing this thing on an airplane and I was like, it blew my mind. And he's a down to earth dude
Mm.
who even his presentation was very, very down to earth and amazing story. And when I interviewed, we did a Zoom like this and he's in London and I love listening to the guy and he's so down to earth. And we started out
Mhm.
and he said, I have one question for you. Are you going to publish the video of this? And I said, no, it's audio only. And he said, okay, good, because I'm wearing my favorite sweater and I just spilled some pea soup right here. And I hope this doesn't show up. And then the whole conversation kind of had that human
Yeah,
touch where you felt like your professorial uncle was having a
yeah.
conversation with you across the dinner table. And I'm like, that's, I think, the beauty of it's really hard to coach someone in that, right? It's like, is it a real human experience or not?
Mhm. Yeah. You can help even a really, ineffective presenter can be, everyone can learn to be better, but yeah, I mean, of course there's, the superstars, but I think everyone can learn to be really, really, really good, really passable. But another person who died, of course, many years ago, but Richard Feynman, the Nobel prize-winning physicist, but he has a lot of his videos. I don't know if it not Berkeley, but where was he? Down in California. Anyway, but he did
Caltech or
these
something.
Caltech, I think, right? Yeah. Anyway, he did all these lectures that were recorded. This is the '60s, so he's at a chalkboard, but on a stage. So it's very much, like a presentation, but he's teaching. And he uses humor and he's not boring and the students are engaged. There are no iPhones then, of course, but he would use humor, a very bright guy, obviously. So that's someone I always recommend. I mean, that's to me, that's like my hero. He's a great communicator, whether it's in an interview or on stage. He would say things like, what is science? How do we do it? Well, we have a hypothesis. So what do we do? Well, first we just guess. And then the whole audience laughs. What do you mean you guess? No, no, don't laugh. That's what we do. You guess, right? Well, I think this is my hypothesis. And then we check it. Anyway, he's really engaging. I could listen to him, all day. But Steve Jobs was like that. I've seen keynotes where he's gone over 2 hours. I mean, think about a 2 hour keynote. But he did things to break it up. He bring different people. Of course, some of the announcements were very exciting, but it's not boring. And he had a really great way on stage. But when he was younger, he was not good, in the early 80s. By the time the Mac came out, he was, he really learned. He's like anything. He goes, well, I'm not really great at this. So he got great at it. But by the time the Mac came out, he was very charismatic in front of an audience, but also very approachable. And so people might misunderstand because he seems so approachable. In real life, not so much. But at least and yeah, I don't think you can fake it. So I'm not trying to suggest that he's faking it because I don't think you can fake it. He was a very unusual person in that regard because he could really turn on a charm. And I don't mean that he was a snake oil salesman because I think he actually believed everything.
Right.
that he said, and he would change his mind. He often would change his mind when he got better information. So he wasn't a con artist, but he was optimistic about things he believed in, of course.
Do you recommend, maybe you do this for yourself, but do you recommend that speakers, presenters film themselves practicing? Um, I record a video to our staff every week, and I usually do it in one take because I want to
Hmm.
make it natural, and I don't have a lot of time in my day, and I just
Sure.
literally use my phone and I send it out. But as I always watch it before I send it out
Hmm.
to make sure I didn't say something that's confusing. And I feel that even from that process over 4 or 5 years of doing that, I'm getting a little bit better.
Yeah.
Do you
Yeah.
recommend?
Sure. I mean, yeah, absolutely. Well, the more you do, the better you're going to get. And if you can watch yourself, I mean, that's the best coaching. A good, football coach or whatever is they have film, right? And then the sensei, Yoda goes, look here, right? So you have to see it. Oh, you can explain it. This is the power of the visual. I can show you. I can kind of do it myself, but when you see yourself doing it, of course. Yeah, I've. This brings up another point that's related to that. Presenting, like I mentioned with Dr. Enfeld, I'll send the links to you later, but one is on stage and then one is just in front of a camera. Maybe there's someone else there, maybe there's not. I find that really hard. I find it extremely hard. It's much easier to do a presentation live. I'm all prepared. I got the slides. Everything's working. I'm not worried about it. It's one take. There's no possibility of another take. It's just go. But when when there's no audience and there's just that camera and you can't do other takes, I mean, if you saw my outtake reel, which is 90% of it, I swear like a drunken sailor. I mean, it's so frustrating. And so that is another art that teachers can work on too. There's teaching in front of a class, but if they want to make videos as well, supplementary videos for their students, which I know a lot of professors do, you just have to keep doing it and you'll get better at it. You have to kind of, I don't know why just the camera is so difficult where a live audience isn't.
I wonder how much of that goes back to the kind of primal roots of story, right? Like it was meant to be something shared in community and in family in a circle and with people there and watching their expressions and uh, I don't know. I think the camera is really artificial because I've had that same experience. I had to record an onboarding video for new staff and with our HR team, and they said, "Well, there's the studio. You can go to the studio and they're going to record this video." And I thought, "Okay, great. Here are my topics." And I get to the
Hmm.
studio, and I'm used to filming one take on my camera,
Hmm.
send it off to staff, but those are our employees. But now I'm trying to project out and think, what are new staff or prospective staff wanting to see? And the very nice producers at the studio are saying, can you do another take? Can you talk a little bit more about
Okay.
that? And
Yeah.
I'm thinking,
Yeah.
oh my God. And then I
Yeah.
start to clam up because it just doesn't feel like a normal conversation.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think what you said earlier is absolutely the reason is that it's very natural to us. I don't know, how many tens of thousands of the DNA developing that we're just used to telling stories or talking in front of other people, at least one other person.
Right.
And it's only been in a few, little over 100 years, the idea that we'd put a camera and I would pretend. That's really hard to do. It doesn't come natural to a lot of us. But interestingly, my shyest students, the most introverted students, they would prefer to record themselves, by themselves with a camera. Where my
Mm.
more, extroverted students, then no, it's easier. Like me, even though I'm an introvert, I find it easier to be in front of people. I think most people probably do once you get over that fear of. I mean, both are scary for people,
Yeah.
right? Because we don't want to stick out because, that's why leaders are often, sometimes they're sociopaths because it's very normal to want to be in the middle of the herd because you're not going to be attacked. So it takes a special person that really wants to put themselves out there. So it's not, I mean, no well-adjusted person is not nervous, especially when
Yeah.
they're starting out. They might eventually get used to it. I mean, you're younger than I am, but people like Johnny Carson, who was a very famous talk show host, but he never watched himself. He was very shy. He never really got over the nerves, but he was a professional, so he didn't know he was nervous. Which is what I always tell my students. I had one recently. She was just so nervous, the whole idea of it. But I told her, no one knows you're nervous. You don't look nervous, and no one will know that you're nervous. So that kind of, and it's very natural and no one knows. So just slow down and it will be fine. And that's, yeah. And she
So,
did
so
great.
now you teach university students to present and or in the context of some other content, that's what they're presenting. How
Yeah, no,
tell
so
us
I have a lot.
about
Yeah, I have a lot of just presentation classes, but I have a marketing class and a senior thesis class. But the presentation is a big part of that, and they always say when they review the class, that's their favorite part. Where they didn't know they're going to get that because they're used to well, it's going to be lectures and it'll be a test. And my philosophy is look, everything's online. YouTube is amazing. If you want to learn something, there was a kid that learned coding. He's like 20 and he's like making a bunch of money and he never went to college. Oh, I know it's free. Harvard puts all their coding stuff for free. If you're motivated, you could learn it. Everything's on YouTube. Also, if you're so, but we still have classes. So I think class should be we got to do stuff. It's got to be interactive. And I mean, otherwise, why are we here? I mean, you can learn this anywhere. So let's be
right.
here and I'll be more like a Yoda figure and we're going to do stuff in class.
Hmm.
That's my feeling of it. So it's not.
Hmm.
But in terms of subjects, yeah, it's students doing presentation is a big part of it. But sometimes it's at the whiteboard, so they might explain. They have time to prepare, and then they just write stuff on a whiteboard and talk about that. Group work, but not group work that's really forced. But they really anyway. They like it. They like the group work.
I wanted to ask you, so Oregon is known for a lot of things, rainy weather, and I think where they filmed the Goonies is on the Oregon coast, if
Oh,
I'm not
sure.
mistaken,
Yeah. Uh,
and also the home of Nike. Um, and you, if I'm not mistaken, are a runner, or you've run and
yeah, I still run. I started running. Yeah.
yeah. What's do you see a parallel? Maybe I'm stretching, but I'm just always intrigued because I've run my whole life and now I'm starting to slow down because my hips
Mm-hmm.
don't lie, as they say. But um, I've always just really enjoyed that simplicity, really, right? Like there's no faking at running. You're either
Mm-hmm.
doing it or not. You're either fast or you're slow. You're out there. Do you see parallels between that and your presentation work? And then a follow on to that is, what is your do you find that that helps with your ideas and your work when you're out there running?
Oh yeah, yeah. So recently it's more like walking and sometimes jogging because as you get
Yeah, okay.
older, I read
Yeah,
this thing where like people who lift weights, like older men, they never die lifting weights. It's always when they're out on a, hour run, they really push themselves. So I think at this age, I mean, walking is so beneficial. And, if we had a scale and running, maybe it's maybe a tiny bit more, but it's really probably has diminishing returns if you run too much, right? As hips go and things like walking is so good for you. And if you're walking in the forest, which we call forest bathing, this Japanese idea, and there's some science behind it that you're actually getting health benefits from the trees and being in nature. And if you're also walking, wow, that's just amazing. But oh, it's absolutely it's amazing for creativity, for inspiration. So I always have the phone with me because it's just the way life is now. And if I ever get an idea, it often happens. And then so I just record myself. I just talk it and just put it away. I don't listen to anything because it's safer and I like to hear the birds and my footsteps and everything. But yeah, it's absolutely critical. I think any creative person you'll find that they have something that they're doing. But so I never stop. I never stop running. I'm from the most beautiful place in the world, was Cannon Beach. This beautiful beach. Yeah, Goonies. Parts of Goonies was there, and so yeah, it's just the forest is right there. It's all forest, huge. Douglas fir forest, and then boom, beach, beautiful beach. So and you get the sound of the ocean. It's the beach. It's the air, and then the forest is also there. It's like this is the most inspirational place. If you can't come up with ideas here, I don't live there
How,
anymore, but I miss it a lot.
how often do you get back?
No, not very often at all. So it'd been 9 years since I've been in the States with my family, and I went back and I drove them to the Goonies house and all the places where Goonies was filmed. And it's funny, we were there like in August, and I found the house, and we're walking back. All these people, all these middle America people in their rental cars. Is the Goonies house up there? Yeah, it's amazing. Movies
That's
like
how I found it. That's how I can remember. It was a family vacation, and we went to the Goonies house.
Yeah. Well, yeah, a lot of Astoria is a really cool town now. I think a lot of movies have been filmed there, and it's kind of like Wellington in New Zealand. Wellington is kind of like Hollywood of New Zealand. So Astoria should do more of that because for cinematography, it's often cloudy, not rainy, but with cloudy. And cloudy is just the skin looks so good. It's just great atmosphere when you have clouds, sometimes fog. It just gives it a really nice look. Sunshine can be problematic. Even watching a sporting event, right? My son asked me, we are watching some game, NFL playoff game, and it was sunny though. So you know how the ISO doesn't know what to do. So it's
Right.
overexposed in the sunny area and it's too dark. But cloudy days are great for that. So anyway, that's my plug for Astoria. Please make all your films there.
Support the local economy.
Mm.
Um, so I wanted to ask you, you've had a really interesting life because as you say, you've spent more than half your life in Japan and you've had this interesting journey with Apple and also, kind of an unconventional path. Now traveling around the world doing keynotes and um,
Mhm.
in a day and age of more and more bells and whistles and more sexy AI and everything, really the simplicity piece. What advice would your 60 something year old
Mhm.
self give your 18-year-old self that you
Oh,
wish you'd known at the time?
yeah, yeah. Well, not look, if I was 18 today, you mean?
Yeah, like what have you learned?
Uh,
You know, in other words, if you could go back and talk to that 18-year-old, what would you tell him?
yeah. Well, I mean, things that would help me now. So that's a different question than what if I were 18, today? Like nobody knows the future. So I have no regrets. I wasn't going to be in STEM anyway, although I do like science pretty much, but math was not a strong point of mine. So I
Mhm.
just went with what was my strong point, which was reading and writing. So I studied philosophy. But I think for a student, there is no panacea, and people say, "Well, it's STEM or it's STEM plus this." You got to know how to read and write and be curious. The worst thing is to be incurious. And some people just are incurious, I guess. But that's just it's a very depressing thought. So, and I think I am curious. So I was stimulated by, I'm not particularly, intelligent, but I think I had to write, I liked my teachers and I was inspired by them to be curious about the world. And I think the arts are so important. I wish I would have done more arts. When I think about junior high, especially, that was a completely waste of time for me. And mostly my fault. I was a good kid, but a C student. It wouldn't have mattered though. It would have been better served if you sent me to music camp for 2 years and I did nothing but music. I wouldn't be any different, except I'd be a great piano player or a cello player because academically I got nothing out of that. And even early high school, the freshman year, but my last 3 years of high school was great because I was way into music and drama and all these things. But I didn't do painting or I didn't do fine art because I thought, well, I'm not a fine artist. I can't draw. And I regret that I should have done more fine art because no one knows what the jobs are going to be. You'll learn that anyway. So we used to think it's programmers, yeah, get a degree in CS. And now there's these kids graduating from Berkeley and they can't find a job with their CS degree. So nobody knows. I don't know what you should study. Don't go into debt, whatever it is, do not go into debt. Go to a community college if you have to for 2 years. I mean, the idea is just do not do the debt. I did debt, but it was so little compared to today.
Right.
But study what you want. Is no one if you study whatever you study psychology and people say you're never going to get a job doing that. Well, you still keep your interest. You're still doing other things. You can intern, have a YouTube channel, do whatever. Follow your passions, but just don't go into debt. And if it's a STEM thing that you're really interested in, engineering, and you can handle it, then absolutely. There's no guarantee though that the AI won't replace that job. But AI is
Uh,
not going to replace us. There's a lot of hype right now. There'll be different jobs, but I think the human people who are compassionate, who have empathy, who can be great communicators, you know, who can still be kind to people and thoughtful people, they're going to be in more demand. And smart people who have good BS detectors,
yeah.
who aren't swayed by. the social media or whatever cable news says, but really thoughtful, well read. I think that's also really important to be well read, to just understand the world, not in bites. But yeah, I've read books. It doesn't matter. You just read, understand the world. That's gonna because we don't know the tech's gonna change anyway. But if you can understand, oh, this is like what Socrates said about whatever. These are not superfluous things. I think they're gonna still be relevant. It's not really
Yeah,
what you know. It's can you think? I mean, anyone can have an idea or repeat something, but how do you know what you know? Can you can you think?
it's really great advice. I know we used to just even a few years ago trying to predict what careers were going to look like even 5 years down the road is really hard, right? Like who would
Mm,
have thought that a data scientist or big data thing, but now that's probably going to go the way of AI analysis of amazing amounts of information that a human can't do. So what else are we going to do? But I in my my daughter's getting ready to graduate from college, and I've said similar things to her that you just brought up, which is reading, writing, thinking, being a good person, just the emotional intelligence of interacting with other people, trying to read a room, figuring out, at the end of the day, no sensitive, sensible person's going to want to go to a therapy session with an AI bot compared to
you're
a
right. Sure.
compared to a thoughtful social
Hmm.
worker, right?
Hmm.
Like who could sit in the room with you and talk.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. Yeah. Now, nobody
it's
knows. I'm not worried. So I'm not, it's famous last words, like Bill Gates saying, was it no, who could ever need more than 1 megabyte, or something like that. So you can't, no one knows the future. But that's the thing is, no one knows. But there are people saying that they do know. And you get all these cliches like, yeah, AI won't replace your job, but the person who knows AI will replace your job. AI is just going to be like the air we breathe. Everyone's going to, we use it. We've been using it all the time. And yeah, there are tools. The kids know it. The kids know. Oh, actually, my son, he had to do a fill in the blank for a science, like 20 questions and fill in the blank. And so I go, well, you do that. I came back like 90 seconds later. He's done. He filled it in. Well, but he didn't know it. He took a picture of it with his iPhone, put it into some AI. I don't know if it was chat or whatever it was, and it gave him the answers as a picture. Then he had to copy it, of course, because it was a paper. That's it. That's it. Well, obviously, giving fill in the blank is not something you do as homework, right? Because, and you can't blame the kid. You can say, well, don't use AI, but I mean, what they're going to use, of course.
yeah,
And I use AI all the time. I mean, Jensen Wong was mentioned. It's like an assistant. It's there. You have questions about things. It's still my creative work. It's not writing my paper or making my video, but I have
right.
questions. And
Yeah,
it gives me sources. It answers the question. I used it for what time it is. What time is it now in San Diego?
yeah,
So it better be correct.
exactly. Yeah, no, we just had a staff meeting and we were doing like a brainstorming, put a bunch of post-it notes up and one idea per post-it note. It was on a
Hmm.
theme. And I remember we finished the meeting and one person said, okay, I'm going to start jotting down they sit there with their laptop. And I just thought, you know what? I took a photo of the wall
Hmm.
and put it into chat GPT and I said, make a list of all these and organize by common themes. And it's
Hmm.
instantaneous.
Yeah,
Is it cheating? I don't think it's cheating any more than me wearing these glasses. Now, after that, we can get to, okay, what does it mean that there are these themes, that this theme came up more frequently than the other? What does that mean? ChatGPT can't tell you what that means. That's the human side.
sure, sure. And there are a lot of jobs, like friends who are in hotel business and they have to write a menu for things. I
Right.
mean, this is kind of grunt work. No one really likes, you have to come up with this paragraph to explain this steak or something. Have AI do it, and then you go through, and then you put. That's so helpful. I've used it where people say they've asked me, "Give me the top 10 things a presentation's in." So I did that with AI, and then I said, "Give me like 30," and then I used 10 of them. They were not incorrect. It's just like having an assistant. That is saves me a lot of time. So that I'm totally embracing
Yeah.
the LLMs.
Yeah.
It's very useful. But it's not going to make your presentation for you. It can already, but who cares? I don't want that. Just like I don't, you know, I don't want a AI wife. I have a real partner. I have a real human.
Well, you've been very generous with your time, and I know I wanted to honor your our commitment to the hour time. But I wanted to, before I come to the last question, is there anything that I've not touched on related to your work? Something that you think our listeners should know, and perhaps, if not, then at least where folks can find you
Yeah,
online.
well, sure. There's garreynolds.com. If you just search my name, Garr Reynolds, Garr Reynolds, as in the aluminum, and you can contact me from the website and the YouTube channel. It's Presentation Zen on YouTube. But the only thing is, I kind of said it before, but in terms of like teachers, education, I think presentation is more important than ever because you can't fake it. Even if you got used AI to help you a lot, but you still have to stand there and deliver, and you have to do the Q&A. So let's say it's 5-minute presentation, and we're going to have 5 minutes of discussion, I mean, you can't fake that. But the paper you could fake, and and then it gets time consuming with people taking it through. And did you fake, So probably writing. I don't do writing in my class, but if I did, I would do in class stuff, right? I mean, because you can write it in class, but I don't do that kind of class. But I would think for just about any subject, having students do presentation where they have to actually do the research, you can use AI to help you with that. But what I show in my videos is AI at the beginning, yes, to help you to get an overview, just like we use Wikipedia. Students could use that to kind of, refine their questions. It could be about anything. For example, I don't know, maybe like, is animal fat really unhealthy? That could be a question, right? And then research that. But you, at some point, you need to identify some actual books or papers, some PDFs that you could actually get away from digital and sit down and read. I still think reading is so important. Yes, you can still watch videos. At some point, you really need to really know your topic, know the subject. I mean, you know your subject because you've been doing it for decades, right? But when you're, a 15-year-old student and you're going to present on, I don't know, the health benefits of fat in a diet or something, well, you need to study this, and then you're going to present it, and then you're going to teach us too, right? And when you teach, you're learning, right? You know the book Make It Stick. Make It
Yes.
Stick is talks about that, how learning should be difficult. If you don't have a struggle, you're not going to know it, and you're not going to remember it. So it's kind of like that. So I think presentation is here to stay, and you can do it with technology or without. But that's something, even if you're an introvert, make it a safe place for students, even students who are, not real comfortable doing that. It still can be a good learning experience for them. Presentation is learning. It's not just sharing, it's also learning.
Well, we'll definitely link to your website and your YouTube in the show notes, and really appreciated your thoughts and your ideas today, and your generosity of your time. The last question is a hypothetical. So, and it'll be interesting because of your design background as well. If you're given the opportunity to design a billboard for the side of the freeway, uh,
Those are
what?
dangerous.
Yeah, danger.
Yeah.
Uh, I've asked people this, and they say I don't believe in billboards because that's visual pollution. But we're going to assume we're going to get
Yeah.
past that. What does Garr Reynolds billboard say about what you feel is important about life, about your?
Oh, no, that's an interesting question. You ask everyone that, right?
I
I
do.
wish
It's kind of a synthesizing distillation question.
yeah, I wish I had more time. I guess it
The
would
whole
be,
point is you're not supposed to have time. It's supposed to be a knee
well,
jerk.
yeah, it would be, I mean, if it's a billboard, what would get attention? I guess it'd be Apple-esque, right? With lots of white space and maybe, and Helvetica, in the center. But it's not my quote, but like be here now, be somewhere else later. I think that's just a really important thing. We're so distracted. And I'd been reading about, Zen since high school, but it just seems more relevant now because it always talked about, how to stop distraction, how to be here 100%. Um, this is the moment. There is no other moment. The past doesn't exist. And we need to understand the past and the future, but they don't really exist. This moment exists. Something like that. I don't know. Let me think about it. But yeah, just white with a black Helvetica. That would get
Mm,
attention because there's so much
right.
noise that actually would get attention.
It would in its simplicity, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's hard not to
Well,
answer without a cliche. I'm Mr. Cliche. I try to avoid it.
I really thank you, Gar, for your time, and I've really looked forward to this conversation, and I've admired your work for a long time. And as I said at the start, your books are frequent
Oh,
gifts of
thank you.
mine, staff members, and others. So
Well, that's
I
very
really
kind of you. Well, if
appreciate it.
I'm
And
ever in the San Diego area, I'd love to visit your school.
yeah, please stay in contact, and we'll
Okay.
connect. Okay,
All right. Thank you very much. All
so
right.
much.
Thanks,
Enjoy
David.
the
Good
rest of your
luck.
day. Bye
Bye
bye.
bye.
Thanks for joining us on the Hangout Podcast. You can send us an email at podcastinfo@proton.me. Many thanks to my daughter Maya for editing this episode. I'd also like to underline that this podcast is entirely separate from my day job, and as such, all opinions expressed herein are mine and mine alone. Thanks for coming on in and hanging out.